Welcome everyone to a new episode of Data Architecture Elevator Podcast. Lately we are focusing on the intersection between data and data engineering that we usually and mainly do at Agile Lab, also with data science. And so today I have with me Pietro. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. Happy to be here.
Today we will discover and focus a bit on what data engineers and data scientists do and what's their role into data projects. But let's start from your background. How did you get into data science? What's your experience working with data engineers? That would be the biggest topic.
Or not working with data engineers. Okay, so my background is rather typical from data scientist that started like 10 years ago. I was an applied mathematician transitioning from academia to industry, and 10 years ago it was a classic job to start working in the industry. And I was working, and I've been working before joining Agile Lab and the magic world of data engineers. So right now I'm really working with data engineers. But previously I was working in a software company, so a product company that sells a supply chain planning and optimization software. And I was a data scientist responsible for a part of the project, of the product, and some projects with customers interested in functionalities, advanced functionalities. And in that company, we did not have officially any data engineer. And so working without data engineers is, for a data scientist, is a lot of pain. It is a lot of pain, and something that I can quote, a tweet that I read recently that says, if your first data hire is a data scientist, what you really hired is an inexperienced data engineer.
Makes totally sense.
So, because what you actually, when you work into the industry and you're not doing data science at the university, you're not given a clean data set, you make your analysis, you make your model, and that's it. Okay, you get a good vote, good mark, you have to get the data, it's dirty. When you finally manage to get it, clean it, and you build a model, then you do, okay, then what? How do I make people use my beautiful model?
Sure.
And so without a data engineer, it's a work of pain. Also because software engineer asks you, as a data scientist, to evaluate if Spark can be used on this particular task. And you say, no, this is not the bottleneck. This has nothing to do with this. You are doing queries on SQL DB, and
that's the real problem. So actually, we can say that for sure these two roles need to collaborate, and they are essential for data projects to be successful. Obviously, as you said, data engineer borns from the pain of a data scientist or a data analyst. But what do they actually do? Let's say we have two different roles, data scientists and data engineers. What do they actually do in a real world project?
Mm-hmm. So let's get back to the basics. So the data scientist is the one who has to answer the question, what can we do with data and some advanced ideas, some math, some models, some statistics, or maybe some very simple ideas. Where do we extract value with data? It has to have the knowledge of the domain, some knowledge of models, because part of the revolution of data scientists is because a different class of models, in most cases machine learning engineering models, but not only those, also probabilistic techniques and other type of techniques can be used to bring value to a company, to extract value. The old data is the new oil, but you need the drill and you need somebody to say, needs to say, dig there.
Drill with this kind of
data. Yeah, because I can sense that there might be oil there. But then, when you do the exploratory work on finding something, you have to build a rig and an industry to make something that works day by day, and then you can extract value from that idea, not only in theory, on paper, on a PowerPoint, but on the day-to-day of the life of the company.
So creating a robust pipeline to
and
actually...
Exactly, yeah. We're back to oil unexpectedly, about pipelines, about moving stuff, about engineering this idea. And if you want, you can think about the two roles, about a data scientist who is a screenwriter, needs to be a little bit creative in saying, okay, let's have these two characters, I don't know, somewhat crazy one, very down-to-earth one that meet and they clash because they don't understand each other, but then they happen in a particular situation. So you have a screenwriter who sets the story, imagines the story, and kind of proves the narrative mechanism. But then to make a movie, you need a director that puts everyone in line and make sure that we do scene 1, 5 takes, and we have 2 weeks to record these scenes, and so.
That's their role. Right.
Make our dreams reality.
Right. And prepare everything for success, let's say, or try to at least.
Yes. Then we usually crash together because we share this feeling of pain and failures because data, anyways, is hard. It's not
sure.
an easy thing.
Can you make an example of a data science project
Yes.
And so how the data engineer, what's the part where the data engineer focuses more? What's the part where the data scientist focuses more?
Okay, let's do with something basic in which I'm familiar. A demand forecasting example for an e-commerce site. Let's something a bit more modern. So. In the e-commerce site, you have people who have to order from suppliers the things that customers want to buy. So customer buys stuff, and there are people behind in the company that need to decide what to put on the website and what to order in order to ship it to the customers. And a critical element for those who have to send you the goods, I mean, it's Christmas time, so it actually makes perfect sense, is to predict the future. And so a component behind every company that does e-commerce and is data-driven is a demand forecasting pipeline. So something that takes the historical data of the demand, or maybe it has to find the forecast for new products, and this can be composed by different components, and you need to produce a forecast, and the data scientist needs to think, for example, for when do I need this kind of forecast? Because if the stuff that I order arrives in 2 days, I have a very short horizon in which I need my forecast to be precise. If it's 2 weeks or 3 months, I need a longer horizon of forecast. And what data can I use? The analytics, do I have information about the customers? Do I have information about the product in order to produce a forecast? You should always start with something very, very simple. And first ask the data engineer to do, okay, give me the data and I do just the bare minimum, like I put an average of the last week of the demand.
That's a very simple
Let's
model.
make sure that my business user is able to see that number and project it for 3 weeks in the future.
So you are saying like that the data science comes up with a grocery shopping list of what data he wants, and then the data engineers goes shopping and makes possible all this data to be accessible.
And then they experiment and they start cooking stuff for the people in the restaurant, and they decide which are usually the managers, stakeholders, you put a spice of that, a spice of this.
You make the number bigger in the dashboard, and
you do whatever. Then there are sort of hacks to make the customers like your dish. And then when you have experimented on a dish, this is, you do it, then you want to make out the business. Because as a data scientist, when you build a model, the things you want is, okay, let's put it in production and do another one.
that's fun. I don't want to see that data, that model anymore.
No, if it goes in production and people are happy to maintain it, to improve it, because usually you stop at layer 2 of the 10 layers of technological sophisticated that you wanted to put in the model.
So you have a good excuse to go the plate the thing. Okay, so we touched what data engineers and data scientists do and their relation, but how can they work more effectively together? Do you have a secret recipe to
Doing the podcast.
Okay.
Going to lunch, talking to each other. Now, apart from the job, talking is very important, but what can you talk about? So I think one of the central things that both data scientists and data engineer need to know about, because we didn't touch it, but the tooling is completely different. The type of libraries and stuff that you use is different.
Yeah, there is some...
there is an overlap, but let's say there is a different tooling. And but one thing that you both have in common is that they should have knowledge of the domain. Okay, the domain, it means that for your e-commerce site, you know that you are selling pet food, or you are selling electronics component, and electronics component change continuously, or they have different times, the master data of electronics component comes from different suppliers, and it's all messed up because electronics component have very low margins, so the data that they push up is very low quality. So you need to have the knowledge of the domain in terms of the business and of the data. Both need to have it, because on one side, the data scientist needs to know where can extract the value from that domain, and the data engineer is the reality check. Yeah, but can you actually do it? Stop for a moment and let's step back. We don't have the data.
Or it's too hard to extract sometimes, or extract in a timely manner.
And so the data engineer needs to know the relationship between domain and reality, but they need to know, both to know about the domain. So that's one way to start a discussion between the two. And that helps to align the goals and build a common language. When you have to talk, language is rather important.
Yeah.
You can talk with science, but that's also language. So this is one thing, domain. The second thing is the delivery. Okay, let's say they talk about the domain, then each one goes in separate ways, but they should talk continuously. But let's pretend data scientist produces the model and then wants to put it in production.
Sure.
And there are a number of other challenges, and the data scientist wants to put it in production because he can then brag about the model that he put in production.
He's predicting future, so he's ready.
Yeah. And the data engineer is the brag enabler. The one that allows to brag about, but it also, I don't know, I guess there is a kind of satisfaction to make things work, is satisfaction of an engineer and to know the internals of the system. I don't know, you tell me about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you put something in production and you can see a clear way of how everything happens, it's a satisfaction. Even if I don't predict future usually, I do very boring stuff, but very boring but neat stuff is very nice to me. So there is satisfaction also in that.
And we say domain and delivery. You will need to talk about those things. You come from different places. You work somewhat on different things. You have different needs, different requirements,
different goals.
Internally, yes. I mean, you both go toward the shared goal, but internally, you need to reach your short-term task. You need to complete it. And so, one thing that is always important when you have two people with two different roles working together is communicating with kindness and empathy. That's very, very general, but it's not bad to say it again and again. Also because on one side you maybe have engineers, on one side you have mathematicians, physicists, and kind of tend to forget about the human side. and that's very important to work effectively. So
yeah.
It's a good reminder.
Different backgrounds seem like nothing, but actually in real life tend to create a lack of empathy, because you don't have another person background, and that makes things a lot more difficult. But yeah, you have to put yourself in their shoes, and also the other way around. That enables succeeding in delivering also complex projects. I see also the domain. The first thing you said about domain language, I feel that resonates a lot with the data mesh that we always talk about. The fact that we should create domain-oriented and product-oriented teams. That
can I make a plug in the podcast?
For sure.
Because I recently did at PyData New York a talk that was called Domain-Driven Data Science. And it was inspired by this fact that I think the domain is very important, and by this fact that I recently joined the Agile Lab, in which the domain on the data engineering side, the data mesh, is also central to what we think is important.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
I still have a...
You have still to put it in.
Integrize the fact that I should... sell also the data engineering stuff. Because the other thing, when we are working nicely together, we make a good team to talk to the managers and offer them a nice package of something that has the vision, but also...
But it's down to earth.
But also something that they can say, okay, this is something that I can put my chips on with my manager above and say, okay, let's approve these two guys. They seem to get together rather well, and I will approve the project and put the money.
Put the money, which is the
budget, the money.
Okay, so I think we're done for this episode of Data Architecture Elevator Espresso. We are a bit over our 15-minute mark, but it was a very nice conversation. So I hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you very much, Pietro.
Thank you, Antonio.
See you in the next episode.
Yes, with
Bye, everyone.
Bye.